So I watched the third and final season of Love. Now, I still think season one is a classic and will be remembered as a classic. Season two I thought was quite good as well. Season three, I had a hard time getting through it and watching it, and it wasn't a good, like, oh, it's so uncomfortable, these they're so awkward, I can't watch. No, it was just like, oh, I can't believe how much this show has just nosedived in quality. I'll try to explain. If you don't want to watch the rest of the video, I'll try to sum it up in a few sentences. I think what Love did so well was showing a realistic meet cute and realistic love story of people that are very flawed in their own ways, coming together and trying to make it work. And it was so great when it was showing the messiness and it was showing their flaws. And then season two ended where they kind of were together, but not by any personal growth on their part. It was really just by dumb luck that they were still together by the end of season two. We really hadn't seen that growth. And then season three, it just felt like this smug victory lap where they were, for the most part, just kind of patting themselves on the back, just doing all the typical couple stuff without even their own personal twist on it, and kind of just everything was working out for them. Their relationship, there were a few hiccups here or there, but it was largely working out, and it just felt like this kind of smugness and this victory lap, if it felt earned, and if you'd seen over the last couple of seasons some real growth and some real change and them really confronting their issues, then this victory lap would feel completely different. It would feel earned, and you would like watching it. But when you saw them taking this smug victory lap without really having any growth, and some of the growth that they tried to say, I feel like it was growth and addressing problems that I don't think they were the real problems. So Mickey, she was sober, but I don't really think her problem was ever that she was an alcoholic. We barely saw her drink or take drugs or have sex compulsively. We never saw this. What we did see was her just be pretty selfish and pretty scummy and kind of a liar and kind of getting herself into situations that she had to weasel her way out of. We saw her as kind of all the worst aspect of like a free spirit. And towards the third season, I'd never really seen her change. We saw her use Bertie and kind of use her and not really treat her as a friend and not really treat her as an equal. I never really saw that change. It would have been great if we saw Mickey treat Bertie different or treat Gus different and kind of prioritize Gus over other things. And we never saw this. So when she was sober and she wasn't drinking and she just kind of lucked into doing better at her job, it was like, that was cool, and I guess I'm happy for her, but I didn't really see her address the things that drove you crazy about her through season one or two. So that's why the smugness just rubbed you the wrong way so much. And I forgot to say, at the end of season two, it was luck where they stayed together, and also lies. Mickey just lying to Gus, and we never see that addressed at all. So okay, that's it for my quick little summary of the video. Now I'll start the video and I'll start with where they first met, how they first met, and how that really set the tone for at least the first couple of seasons of the show, I found. So how they met was Mickey was trying to get a coffee and she didn't have money. Now it's unclear whether she actually forgot her wallet or this is just a scam she runs, and most people let her get away with it, where she's like, oh, I forgot my wallet, can I have the coffee for free? Now the convenience store owner or the guy working there, he seems like a massive dick, unless you know Mick and you've seen her behavior, that this is how she constantly tries to get little things from people and use them, and for once in her life, someone wasn't letting her get away with it. But then in comes Gus, enabling her, and you see he shows some niceness. And he says, look, I'll buy you the coffee. And immediately, what does she do? She says, oh, and a pack of cigarettes. So immediately, she's the kind of person, she can sense niceness and weakness. And rather than just taking the niceness and that being it, no, she immediately doubles down, sees how much more can I get out of this. And then classic, where she says, well, look, she feels bad. And she's like, I have money. We'll go get my money. So they go all the way back. First of all, he's in a rush. And she says, oh, it'll only take a little bit of time. It clearly doesn't. But he's fine because she's pretty, so he's happy with that. So they go back to her house, and suddenly, not only does she not have the money, so immediately she's wasted more of his time and not given him anything. Then she ropes him in, and suddenly he finds himself helping Bertie move in. So it's just the kind of people that almost without maybe them even realizing it, and sometimes without you realizing it, they just continually take and take and take until you soberly just like look and take stock of just your relationship and just realize how much they take from you. And I thought it was just a classic depiction of, again, not an addict. They tried to make Mickey out to be this addict, and it's not necessarily an addict. It's just kind of a shitty person who's self-centered, maybe doesn't even realize they're self-centered, but just very self-centered, very selfish, and just takes a lot, sometimes without even realizing. And so we get this classic start of a love story between this girl they say girls all the time, they say girls like bad boys. This is the reverse. That's totally true as well, where a lot of guys who are like, I don't know, stereotypical nice guys, to use that term, they like girls who aren't good for them and girls who kind of use them and manipulate them. So we get to Gus, who seems like a classic nice guy, but we definitely see flaws early on. Funny things like they're flirting, and she says, "Oh, Freddy Krueger's house." And he corrects her and is like, "Oh, well, it wasn't Freddy Krueger's house. It was the girl who had dreams of Freddy." And it's just that kind of thing that, like, those people who correct, and they correct you when it's not the point. Like that's not the point of the joke. There's nothing to be gained from that correction. And we see that really throughout all the seasons of Gus kind of, well, technically it's like, actually with the nerds. And it's just like, so it's just this great depiction. And his job is he's on the set of this, he's the tutor on set, teaching these child actors, and you take something that's already very underappreciated. Teachers are already underappreciated at a kind of macro level, so they highlight that by putting him in a situation where nobody really cares about him actually teaching, least of all the child star. No one respects his work. He's only there because the government mandates that he has to be there, but no one really cares about whether or not he succeeds. And then when he doesn't, everyone immediately scapegoats him and blames him when it's not his fault at all. He's doing his best, but it's partly the person he's trying to teach, the child star. It's partly everyone else who doesn't really let him do his job and is constantly filming and not giving him the time. But then immediately, obviously, when things go wrong, who do they blame? Well, the easiest person to blame is him. So he's in an environment where it's all about superficial and looks, trying to teach, and no one cares. And then also, the people he's trying to teach, at least when you're a teacher, it's not like that your students oftentimes are so much wealthier than you, so much more powerful, so much better looking, so much better in every way. So he's in this position, not only does no one really respect the work he's trying to do and no one really cares, but even the person he's trying to teach is already so far ahead in life that he'll ever be. So Gus is kind of a stereotypical figure, and they found the perfect job for that kind of person. And then we get to what is maybe one of my favorite episodes of the whole show, Gus's date with Bertie, and we really get a look at Gus, and one just always overthinking, and always, like the waiter says something nice, "Oh, I'll take the drinks off for you, I'll take them off the bill," and Bertie, just a normal, well-adjusted person, says, "Oh, how nice." Gus immediately starts thinking, the wheels start turning, and not only does he overthink, but then he says things he shouldn't. He says, "Well, it's not really him being nice, it's really him just angling for more of a tip." Just the worst thing to say. So we start to see Gus ruin this date, overanalyze, start to think, "Oh, did I offend the waiter? I don't want him to spit in my food." Just insecure neuroticism. And then also we get some of the first tastes of his aversion to conflict and his passive aggressive way of lashing out at people. It's partly tongue-in-cheek, I think, but he says one of the things he does is if he gets bad service, rather than not tipping, he'll over-tip and try to, in some misguided way, make the person feel guilty, the waiter, the person serving him, because they know they didn't give that good service and they're getting over-tipped, so they're going to feel guilty. Part of this might be projection, where maybe Gus would feel guilty if he did a bad job and he got over-tipped, but the vast majority of people don't think that way, and they would just be overjoyed. So this completely misguided way he tries to get revenge on the world without actually having any confrontation. And then that episode ends with Mickey running over and kissing him, and it turns out she's really had feelings for him all along. And this is a moment where I thought, okay, this show, it's fun, but it's a fantasy. Like, that's what maybe Gus would hope to happen, but really, I didn't see the chemistry there. I didn't think that was realistic. But then the next episode, it changes, and we get this great thing that shows just how delusional Gus is about their relationship, where Gus is immediately excited and ecstatic and spends the whole day planning a text and this, and really Mickey, yeah, she might like him, but it was so inconsequential and she thinks so little about sex. She spends the next day, she goes and has sex with her boss just to try to make it so he can't fire her, because then it would be sexual harassment. So we just see the completely different wavelengths that someone like Gus and someone like Mickey is, and you start to wonder, can people that are this different really make it work together? And then I love how we get another thing where they're texting each other, and in Gus's mind, he's constantly thinking about every text, and Mickey's the only thing he's really thinking of. He's on his set, but he's not paying attention. He's really just focusing on Mickey. With Mickey, she's off on this adventure with Andy Dick, this celebrity, and she's checking into Gus. She really likes him, but she's off on this adventure, and she's barely paying attention. So with Gus, he texts her and she doesn't text back, and he interprets it as, oh, she's really mad because he's not able to hang out and she cares so much, and then he blew her off and now she's really mad. But really, no, he's the last thing from her mind. She's just off having fun. So just again, we get this great contrast between, you could say guys and girls. I wouldn't say guys and girls. We get this great contrast between people who are kind of more stable and more committed and more, in some sense, normal, and then people who are kind of free spirits and kind of adventurous and kind of different types of people. And I feel like a running theme through these early seasons was Gus doing things based on this idea he had of Mickey and this misguided idea of who she was, her feelings towards him, and some misguided sense of duty. So he would turn down all these other opportunities that, Mickey would never turn down for him, because he had this misguided sense of like loyalty to her and this idea of her in his head that just wasn't true. And the most brutal example of this was, I think, when he's at the Friends of AA, or the Friends of people who are addicts, and he's at the support group meeting. He's talking about her and he's just being such a good guy, such a good boyfriend, and then you see Mickey, she's off sleeping with this other guy, and it's just gut-wrenching. I also like how they showed, especially early on, that maybe Gus wasn't as cool as Mickey, but in some sense, he was better than her. And we saw this when he really had friends, and he had hobbies and interests, and he had quirks, and he had a personality. And sometimes you saw Mickey, and you saw the contrast to that, where she didn't really always have those things. And when she tried to come over and be part of his friend group, she couldn't really pull it off, and you kind of got that sense. And then Mickey started getting clingy and attached, and you got that sense that for all his flaws, Gus in some ways deserved a bit better, at least how she was initially. And we see a lot of Mickey's psychology and backstory fleshed out in season 2. We meet her dad, and her dad's just the worst, just an addict and a user and a hustler, and he says hustling's in our blood, and we see just his bullshit and how he's always saying bullshit, and how hard that must be for Mickey to have the father, the one that's supposed to be your rock and the person you look up to, and just know that almost everything they say you can't trust, and it's just bullshit. And you start to see where Mickey's problems come from. And the season ends with just Mickey being Mickey. So she gets herself in to this situation where she wants to be with Gus, but now there's this other guy that she lied about and didn't tell him. And we see how Mickey she's so used to getting herself into these situations and then lying and trying to slither out of it and just worm her way out of it. It's just natural for her. She's not freaking out. She's not panicking like, oh my God, how did I get into it? It's totally normal for her to be with a guy running away from another guy. It's just natural. And she does get out of it. But again, she gets out of it by lying and by luck. So that's where we get to season 3, where we've really seen these characters and they're pretty much the same as we've always seen them. And then in season 3, rather than seeing this growth that we've wanted to see for all this series and all the mistakes we've seen them make and all the horrible things they've done, and you want to see the growth. Rather than that, we see them bowling strikes and celebrating about bowling strikes. And a great example of this, so Bertie, it's her birthday, and Mickey's like, oh, sorry, I can't hang out, I've got this work thing. And I was just dying for this moment where Bertie's kind of sad, but then we see really Mickey canceled the work thing, changed the work thing, and really was there for her friend. And we just see that great contrast between in season 1, when she really didn't treat Bertie particularly well, and we see how much she's grown and really grown to value Bertie as a friend and see her feelings as equal to her. But we don't see anything like that. Instead, we see all this talk, and they really double down on this idea of Mickey as an addict. And we see her in recovery and overcoming these things. But I just feel like Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous, they name dropped this a few times. We never saw Mickey compulsively sleeping with different guys. We saw her sleep with her boss because she wanted to not get fired, but that had nothing to do with the compulsion and addiction. So it was one thing in season 2 when she was kind of going to meetings and in recovery and saying she's an addict. That's, I guess, mildly annoying if you don't really think she's an addict, but it becomes really, really annoying when in season 3 it's just her congratulating herself, when really you never saw her white knuckling it, you never saw her on a bender, you never saw her anywhere near rock bottom. Forget rock bottom, you never really saw her really being an addict in any sense of the word. It seemed like she was just kind of immature and selfish and narcissistic, and her stopping drinking and partying was just her kind of growing up, which is great, and that's great, but I didn't think it was as impactful as they were really trying to make it out to be. And even Mickey succeeding at her job, so Brett Gelman was playing her boss, and he was so hateable in the first season, second season. It was great to see him get his comeuppance and finally meet what I consider to be the new him. It was someone who was, let's be honest, was going to be just as insufferable probably in 20 years, was going to age just as poorly, was just as full of themselves, just as self-important. So it was great to see him get ousted by her. But then when the whole third season was kind of, oh, isn't it awesome that now she's the head and her and Mickey have all the power? It's like, no, she's still an awful representation of millennials and just vapid, superficial Twitter followers just talking about blowjobs and using sex to sell and get attention. So she wasn't, I thought, a positive, really good character that you wanted to root for. It's like, no, she was just kind of the next iteration. I could see why she was way more popular than Brett Gelman's character and was going to oust him. It was real life, but it wasn't something I wanted everyone to be so smug about. And again, it's just this fundamental smugness that now it was like Mickey was really powerful at her job. You didn't see her work hard at it. You didn't see her really do anything different. It was just she was kind of half-assing it at her job. This person happened to come. They happened to be friends. And now all of a sudden she's patting herself on the back about doing so much hard work at her job when we never saw it at all. And I thought there were some great couple moments between Gus and Mickey in the third season. So when he's doing his shoot and he doesn't get the takes he wants and he's talking to her on the phone and she says, hey, stand up for yourself. If you didn't get the takes you want, you go out there and you tell him you're going to do it until it's awesome. That was a great moment, and it showed you what she could do for him and how they could complement each other. And then when he goes and he's doing his takes and he's like, all right, that's a wrap, but let's just do one more thing. And you're like, oh God, he's doing it again, just kind of being a perfectionist. But then no, he's really wants to do one more take so he can get his friend the stunt that they don't really need, but he wants to help his friend out. Great heartwarming moment when Gus stands up for Mickey. That guy's yelling at her at the bar, and he knows that she really did steal, but he stands up for her anyways. And then afterwards she sees him on stage in his element singing, and she's really, you can see, heartwarmed by just seeing him have fun and do his thing. Those are great moments, but so few and far between. It was a big season, and I just felt like so little of it was actually those nice heartwarming moments. So much of it was other stuff that was tough to watch. Okay, so I'm going to end the video there. So much more I want to say, but I've really tried to boil it down to just the gist of why I didn't like the last season so much. Building a show around the first couple seasons, really showing bare the flaws in your protagonists and in your characters and really showing us their flaws. And then in the final season, either not addressing and really showing growth from those flaws, or addressing the wrong flaws or flaws we never really saw. Like I say with Mickey's drug, alcohol, and sex and love addiction, showing her addressing those flaws, which we never saw. Maybe she had those flaws, but I just feel as the audience, we never saw it. We were just told that she had those issues, but we saw a real glaring issue she had. So having your final season not addressing the issues that, at least me, for the audience, I feel like we wanted to see addressed. And then rather than just having another season of showing us these flawed characters, which I would have liked, I wouldn't have minded showing them trying to make this relationship work with all the same flaws. It would have been maybe frustrating that they would have wrapped up the series with not addressing the flaws, but I could have at least said, well, you know, that's what the show was about. It wasn't about happy endings. It wasn't about growth. Sometimes, especially these really flawed people, they don't grow, and that's fine. But when you have your entire third season have kind of a smug tone and a kind of victory lap tone, and a tone of, oh, look how awesome these characters are now, I don't think it was a good way to go.